Hello, everybody, and welcome to True Business Stories podcast. As we keep repeating ourselves, saying what an enjoyable project this is. Mark?
It certainly is. I think we've met the nicest bunch of business folk in Geelong and beyond. We've
That's
had a
right.
few from Melbourne and from Queensland, actually. So, yeah, I've enjoyed every minute of it.
And next week we've got a young farmer from the other side of Colac
It'll be interesting.
who we tried to interview yesterday, but our equipment failed.
Yeah, we had a technical issue, and who knows what that was. But
That's right.
anyway.
Now, Mark, you and I have just been to a breakfast this morning in Geelong, and it's an annual breakfast, and it features Bill Evans.
Bill Evans
who's the
from
economic-
Westpac.
Yeah, the economic chief at Westpac Bank, and it's run by the Geelong Chamber of Commerce. This session has been running for 19 or 20 years.
Yeah, it has.
And this morning, there were 400 odd people this morning at the Cat Stadium, and Bill Evans actually presented a wonderful presentation and very informative. So what did you get out of this morning's presentation?
I think what he did was painted a picture that we're sort of coming out of the worst of it, is probably my overall take, that he's predicting interest rates will hold. He doesn't think they'll lift them, and he thinks they'll come down next year. He thinks that will then help consumer confidence, and he also talked about the fact that people are still spending, but they're spending their savings. So that was interesting. And he also talked about house prices, and he did talk about Geelong, and he feels house prices will start to come back where they've dropped off slightly. So
Yeah, that's right. Two of the key issues I got out of this morning was he put up a chart showing the credit card spending by Westpac customers.
yes, interesting, isn't
And
it? Live data.
It had dropped dramatically.
Yep.
You know, because they track every credit card spend.
What's interesting though is what's the share that Zip and Afterpay has that grown, because we know it's grown,
Yeah.
and has that taken off from credit cards? So it's interesting. You see one side, there's another side there too.
But it also
Anyway.
related to another slide he had, which showed a really large drop in consumer spending
Yep.
just in recent times.
Yep.
Anyway, be that as it may, another
So-
breakfast is over.
We have a guest sitting here looking at us wondering, why am I here if you two are just rabbiting on? So tell us about our guest today, Bill.
With pleasure. Today we're talking to Tim Murrell, who runs Murrell's, is it chauffeurs or hire car? Welcome, Tim, anyway.
No worries. We go by Murrell Chauffeur Drive.
Right, now, right. Now, Tim has a really interesting story because he looks like he could have been a little bit older than my grandkids. In other words, he's a young entrepreneur, and his family has had a business in Geelong for years and years, and it originally was a taxi business. And, of course, as things changed, and Tim's father died of cancer, unfortunately, when Tim was a young fella, and he was thrust into running this company, and he's done a magnificent job with it. And, of course, he's obviously looking into the future, and we'd like to get some thoughts during this morning's discussion about changes, coming up to that. So, Mark, I'll leave it over to you.
Okay, so welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me, and you as well, Bill. I look up to you both a lot.
Thank you.
It's great to
Good.
have a chat with you.
Thank you. So we'll start where we always sort of start at the beginning. And where did you go to primary school?
I went to primary school at Christian College Geelong,
Okay.
where I went all the way through high school as well. So prep all the way through to year 12 was at the one school.
Oh, brilliant. And well, my kids went to Christian College, so that's there you go. We've got something in
It's
in
actually
common.
a great school.
It's a good school. It is a good school. And once you stepped out of high school, what did you want to do? What was going through your mind?
So I always loved our family business. Some of the highlights of my childhood were spending school holidays out there with Dad, and I always had in the back of my mind that I would like to go into it eventually. But things certainly didn't go to plan. So I thought I had a lot more time than what I did, as it turned out. I thought that I'd go to uni and that I'd go and work other places and get different experiences outside of the family business for a few years, and then I'd find my way back to it probably in my early 30s. So that was the original plan,
the
and
plan.
as I'm sure we're going to talk about, that's not how it turned out. But I went to uni at Deakin University.
What'd you do at Deakin? What was
Commerce,
Yep,
majoring in management and marketing. So I went straight there after high school. Got to do a couple of internships, one in Indonesia and the other in India.
Oh, brilliant.
And I thought Deakin was great as well. So I really enjoyed my time there.
And were you still working in the family business a little bit while you were doing it?
Yeah, I was working, always involved in the family business. And while I was at uni, I was working in it part-time.
So it's in your blood.
It is, yeah.
All right, Tim, let's go back to the early days of, well, guess how your father started the business. And I think, was it called Geelong Taxis?
So I won't bore everyone with all of the details, but basically my grandfather Gordon came to Geelong from the Western District, and he was originally in farming. Bought a milk bar to begin with on Roslyn Road there, and then over time the family was in a few different small businesses, but he started building up some taxis, and then Dad joined the business at the age of 20. That was when they really started to build momentum. They were originally part of what was Geelong Radio Cabs, and then they actually made the big decision in 1987 to break away and form their own taxi depot, which was called Bay City Cabs.
Oh, Bay City Cabs.
Yeah, so that was sold in 2007 to Silvertop Taxis, which is a Melbourne company.
Yeah, I remember Bay City Cabs. See, it's funny the brands you see in your time and then they disappear.
Yeah. So, and along the way there, the family went into other businesses, some with quite a bit of success, and others that didn't really get off the ground. We at one point were even in parcel delivery, a business called West Coast Parcels, but had significantly more success in chauffeur drive and charter bus, which is two services that we still offer today. And also built up a property business as well. We started running storage and truck parking in our Nepean Close facility in North Geelong.
So what was the transition from taxis to chauffeur cars? Was it happening at the same time?
No, so that all, the chauffeur drive service came in the early 90s, so they ran concurrently with each other for quite some time. And then after the taxi depot was sold in 2007, we continued running chauffeur drive and charter bus and probably built those businesses up more, focused more on the premium end of the market.
All right, so where we sit today then, you've got the chauffeur drive part of your business, and you've got you personally, about prior to COVID, took a smart move and bought a storage facility out in Bannockburn.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we went into what's called Golden Plains Storage out in Bannockburn at the end of 2020. I was looking around for a bit of a diversification option, and also had some experience in storage from what we had previously done at our North Geelong site, and just happened to come across a small facility in Bannockburn. The owner was a gentleman in his early 80s who was looking to move on and probably not managing the business as actively as it could be managed. So I saw an opportunity to go out there. Bannockburn's really thriving, as I'm sure you guys would know, and just manage it more actively. So none of it was rocket science. I went and letterbox dropped the whole of Bannockburn, did some social media, boosted posts, set up a website, excuse me, and just tried to get the word out. A lot of people in Bannockburn I found didn't actually know there was a storage facility in Bannockburn.
You also refurbished it, and you've recently added to it. You've increased the number of units. Is that what they're called?
That's correct, yeah. So we it was at 60% capacity with 72 units when we went out there, and now we've built an additional 18, got us up to 90, and we're almost sitting at 100.
And am I right in saying, I've had a bit of experience in storage in Melbourne with a client, that you've also embraced technology, and in theory, the facility can run itself.
Yeah, to a certain degree. Yeah. I mean, you've obviously got to monitor things like security. You've still got to make sure that people are getting a good customer experience, in my opinion. Cleanliness and presentation of the facility is really important, but it's also not a super active business. So I run it from our main office in Giro Street, North Geelong. We don't have someone there all the time. I come and go as people would like to make inspections and things like that. So yeah, the storage business runs concurrently with our personal transport service, which is the historical part of the business that everyone sort of identifies us with. Yeah.
So going back, Tim, so you finished uni, you're sort of doing a bit of work. So where did you go to? What was your next step out of uni?
So just as I graduated university was when my dad got unfortunately diagnosed with cancer. I certainly wouldn't recommend this succession plan, but basically parents brought me into a room and Dad said, been diagnosed with cancer and you're going to be running the business starting today. So that's how it went. That was June 2017, 1st of June.
That's what we call a real tipping point.
It is, isn't
Isn't
it?
it? Because it changed your whole direction.
Change your life, your dad's life.
It did, yeah. Yeah, I always think about, how my whole life just changed overnight. It really did. I remember went and sat in a cafe in shock for a couple of hours and then thought I'd better go back to the office. So that's what I did, and I guess I've been trying my best ever since.
And what's admirable there, Tim, is that your parents had the absolute faith to give you the run. They could have sold it. They could have brought somebody else in. They could have done a number of things, but it was, no, let's keep going. And
yeah, I think it was probably more out of necessity than faith, but thank you. That's really nice of you to say.
Yeah, but you took over. So you took over the business, and you could say quite naively, we're not prepared to run a business at that stage.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
Like it's actually really refreshing now. It's been sort of 6 years and I feel like I can be a lot more honest about how I was feeling back then than I could at the time, because you've obviously got to put a brave face on it. So, but no, I wasn't prepared at all. You know, uni's good to some degree, but it's no substitute for actually getting in at the ground floor and running a business from day to day. So I had heaps to learn. I still feel like I have heaps to learn, to be honest. Like I'm still trying to improve every day and definitely don't feel like the finished article by any means. But when I look back on how I felt in 2017 compared to now, I do feel like I've made a lot of progress.
And what sort of things did you do to help you learn the business and grow?
Yeah. So I've always done a lot of reading. I've always loved business, and this is going to show what a nerdy kid I was, but I was reading right from when I was 12 or 13, I loved investing and always read the Financial Review, which I still do every day now. Always read a heap of business books. My hero as a teenager and still today is Warren Buffett.
Yep.
So I've always loved business. So I felt like I learnt a little bit from that kind of thing, reading and also just getting in there and making mistakes as well was a great teacher for me. And on top of that, I've often sought out people with a lot more experience than myself to talk to, and I've found that it's actually amazing if you have a humble attitude and you're down to earth what people are prepared to share with you. So like an example of that would be Norm Lyons from Lyons Construction. Yep. I reached out to him a few years ago because he sent me a very kind email out of the blue. There'd been an article in the Geelong Advertiser about, it was actually just as we bought the storage facility, just on what my journey had been up until that point. And Norm reached out just to give me some encouragement, which I think says a lot about him as a person.
Norm's character. Yep.
Yeah. And ever since then, I asked if he'd be prepared to have a coffee with me and share some of his experience. And that's turned into a really great friendship. He was at me and my fiance's engagement party a few months ago. We had dinner with him 2 Friday nights. And so that's an example of, I could listen to him tell stories about business all day.
And he's got good stories.
He certainly does, yeah.
Now, Tim, we better explain the chauffeur side of your business. We haven't discussed that. So tell everyone about that side of your business, your vehicle fleet and what you actually do in that side of the company.
Yep. So we've got 14 vehicles in the fleet at the moment, between all the way from sedans to people movers, and then 11, 13 24-seater minibuses, plus there's a stretch limo in there as well. We sort of focus on the premium end of the personal transport market. So our main areas are airport transfers, corporate work, things like conference transport packages, winery tours, and then special events like weddings. So we try and have all the bases covered, and because we've got a wide range of vehicles in our fleet, we feel like we can cater to a wide range of transport requirements and a wide range of different clientele. For example, for a wedding, we can do the bridal party, the groomsmen, and also the guests with the minibuses. So that's a particular area we feel like we can add value.
Have you transitioned to any electric vehicles yet?
We've got one hybrid in the fleet. This is a really common question that I get asked. I feel like further electric vehicles is going to be inevitable in the future, although I wouldn't claim to be any particular expert on them or anything like that. But I think it's that certainly seems to be how the world's going.
Can you get stretch limos in this electric?
No, not that I'm aware of at the moment.
I was just thinking as I'm saying that.
Mark, I'm sure somebody is
dabbling.
A workshop is working on one right now.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah. Well, Tim, the other thing is the future should be looking fairly bright, because this region is really kick-started itself again, hasn't it?
It has.
And we've got these new, like I saw a photo of you, Tim, introducing yourself to the new Holiday Inn management team.
Yeah, that's right.
We interviewed, which will go up today, I think, Mark.
Tomorrow
on our podcast. We interviewed the new franchise owner for the Quest Hotel. Then the convention centre's coming along, and there's a hotel going up there.
Yep.
And there are, I believe, other things planned. So you could say that the future for you is looking reasonably bright, but then again, there's always competition, so you've got to be one step ahead.
I certainly hope so. I mean, I think Geelong has an extremely bright future, and it's amazing to see the progress that the city is making as a whole. As you said, Bill, I was at the Holiday Inn this week, and they've got an absolutely exceptional facility, as I'm sure that the Quest do as well, and as the existing hotels in the region that we work with do. So I think the demand for the personal transport service will only grow and grow over time. But as you said, we've got to make sure that we're staying a step ahead, and we've got to make sure we're looking after our customers. And what I really see as our point of difference is our customer service. So I've always been a big believer in competing on customer service rather than trying to compete on price. And that's what we'll continue to do going forward.
How many crew work for you?
So I've got myself and then two other girls in the office, Taylor and Stephanie, who do an absolutely terrific job. I've got a gentleman named Rick who works in the yard. He's absolutely exceptional too, and knows far more about mechanics and all that sort of thing than I do. So he's actually another person that I've learnt a lot from and owe a lot to. And then we've got 10 drivers out on the road. So the demographic that we've always found driving work to be suitable for is people who are semi-retired and also people who do it as a bit of a side gig on the weekends on top of something else. So the drivers do a fantastic job as well, and they're the face of the business, really. So they're the first person that a customer actually meets.
Tim, have you ever had a group get lost?
A group get lost? As in
gone out there and ended up either the wrong venue, or in other words, have you had a disaster that you wish you hadn't had at some stage?
Disaster?
Well, not a disaster, a mishap. Yeah.
Oh, look, there's definitely, I would love to tell you that everything that we, do is perfect and we've never made a mistake, but that's certainly not the case. I always say to people, actually, when I go out to visit potential clients and try and promote the business, I always say that I can't promise perfection, but I can promise that we truly do try for it. And we, the business in general means a lot to me and means a lot to the rest of the staff too. So, I can't lie and tell you that there haven't been mishaps and things like that in the past.
Oh, I'm sure there's been the odd flat tyre.
Flat tyres. And well, that's actually a real challenging point of running the transport service, is we run 7 days a week. So I'm on call 7 days a week. So even if you ask my fiance, Caitlin, there's been plenty of, nice dinners and things like that we've been out to, and then I get a call that there's a flat tire, a flat battery, or a delayed flight, or whatever it might
Welcome
be.
to owning a
It's,
business.
it's an occupancy hazard. Isn't it?
Yeah,
That's right.
so that was that goes back to one of those business challenges that we were talking about before. So I'm very lucky to have a patient, understanding fiance.
So Bill always asks this question, but I'll ask it before he does. What's your leadership style? If we went and interviewed your crew in the office and your drivers and said, "What's Tim like as a boss?" What would they say?
I can't really speak for other people. I could definitely say, like, naturally I'm very, very introverted and shy. So I'm certainly not the most outgoing kind of person. I would say that I like to give people scope to do their own thing. And one of the things I say to Taylor and Steph, who work in the office with me, is don't, try and phrase things like I would phrase it or anything like that. Just do the best job that you can rather than trying to mimic someone else. So yeah, I would say that I am quite reserved as a person, and that's something that I've had to try and overcome to a certain degree without completely changing my personality in the time I've been running the business. But I feel like I feel like I can be outgoing when I need to be now, which is something I've had to develop over time.
Well, I know feedback we've had from a couple of our podcast people, interviewees, is that you have learnt to get out of your comfort zone and go and knock on doors.
Yeah.
And that was evident with that photo I saw during the week. And I know that you and I have had this discussion in the past that in the beginning it was a bit of a struggle.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'll tell you this. This is another one of those stories that I'm happy to tell now, but I wasn't back in the day. In the time after, it was only a matter of a week or two. I can remember I went to work the day after Dad died and just kept trying to push through, which is something I wouldn't recommend, but it's just the reality of what the situation was at that time. And I realized at that point that I really needed to get out and be the new, face of the business and show people that the business was going to carry on. So I started forcing myself to go out to, wineries on the Ballerine and function venues and travel agents and people like that we'd always worked with to actually introduce myself. And those first few meetings, I'd be sitting and my leg would be shaking under the table, and I'd have a whole script in my head. Like if they say this, I'm going to say that, and it was just a very, very anxious thing for me, and was very, very far out of my comfort zone. Like if you had have asked me back when I was at uni, would I ever go out and do sales meetings with people and things like that, I would say I will never be able to do that in my life. Whereas because of a difficult situation, I forced myself to do it, and now it's something that I'm actually quite comfortable with and I enjoy doing. So, it's still not in my comfort zone, but I've gotten a lot better at forcing myself out of it in different ways.
And Tim, you should be congratulated for it because, bang, it happened, and you've grabbed it and you've gone. You've adapted and changed, and I would describe you as humble rather than introverted, because that's the way you are. You're humble about your business.
Yeah, I think probably having been through all of those difficult times gives me quite a healthy perspective on business, because I work my guts out. I genuinely try really, really hard. But at the same time as that, when something goes wrong in business, I have had really serious things go wrong in my life, and that puts it in perspective. And it also makes me empathetic towards other people in business too, because I often look at other people and think you've got no idea what they actually might be dealing with behind the scenes in their life. And it makes you a more compassionate person, I've found.
That's very good.
And so I know it's a real cliche, but there are always silver linings that come out of difficult things in your life. And as I look back and reflect on it now, there's been so many silver linings that came out of that difficult time for me.
Yeah, that's a very insightful summary of that, Tim. We've recently seen the Tasmanian ferry arrive to Geelong, or be homed in Geelong, and people I've read reports, it's going to be a boom for Geelong and all that. Have you experienced any benefit of the ferry coming to Geelong?
I would say a small amount of benefit.
Yeah.
I have been there for a meeting. The terminal's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, like that's a real sort of top-notch facility. We have done a little bit of work with them. I went along and introduced myself, as I always do, and as I was saying to you guys before we started the podcast, it's always a no-pressure approach with me. I just say this is who I am and this is the services that we can offer. And but it hasn't. I'd love to say, it's been a massive boom in bookings for us, but it hasn't yet. Maybe that could eventuate in the future, but as a general rule for Geelong, I think it's been fantastic. So
what's the future hold for the Murrell group of companies?
I think I'd really like... It's interesting because if I look back on, the last 5 years, it definitely... Not everything goes to plan, and you have to be prepared to be nimble is the word that I like to use. So as it currently stands, we've got a lot of really good opportunities because we've actually just sold a significant piece of land that I was just talking about before in the P and Close behind our main site on Duro Street, which we were running container storage and truck parking from. So we sold that to a property developer, and that's given us a lot of opportunities, to look at other storage facilities and things like that. So
you see yourself growing that side of the business?
Definitely see us growing that part. Have made a couple of offers already, but nothing that I can confirm at the moment. And on the personal transport side of things, I would really love to keep growing that part of the business as well. We might be able to offer larger vehicle sizes. We might be able to offer different services, even things like brewery and winery tours where tastings and lunch are included, as we were talking about before. And I think there's a huge amount of scope for us to expand both parts of the current business, and I'm also open to completely new parts of the business going forward as well. So definitely keeping an open mind to our options.
Good. Look, I repeat what I said before. So you've done a fantastic job from that day that you took over the business. Just out of curiosity, how old were you when that happened?
I was 22.
22.
So I'm 28 now.
Right.
Amazing.
And you, so you've now developed a much wiser head. I guess that is holding you really well in business, and I'm really confident that you'll do well in the future. And I'm really pleased to see that how it's not just a traditional business. You found another opportunity that's an extension of your business, but hasn't interrupted your main business, and that it can run remote, or not quite remotely, but it doesn't need a whole heap of infrastructure and people and all those resources. I think that's a great opportunity.
Commendable that you've looked for the opportunity. It really is.
Yeah.
So, Tim, people want to get in touch with you. How do they do that? What's the website?
The website's just www.murrell.com.au. Email address is office@murrell.com.au. And then we've got a phone number as well, which is 52789699. So there's plenty of ways to get in touch with us. We're in the office 9 to 5, Monday through to Friday, just in Duro Street, North Geelong.
And as you said, you do pickups and stuff 7 days a week?
Absolutely, yeah. The vehicles run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So we're always here to help.
Fantastic. So, Tim, thank you. Really enjoyed the conversation.
No worries.
And thanks for being so open with us. It's been really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. We've had you on our list for a while. It's just taken sort of the right opportunity to actually get you here. Probably a little bit reluctantly before you got here, but as you can see, we don't bite. So, thank you, Tim.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate the time today.
Thank you.